Hello, my name is Anaid Bertrand. Welcome to this presentation on the measure comparison of learning ability. The construct of learning ability can be challenging to operationalize. Let us start with defining it. Using a combination of Webster Dictionary's definition and other literature, learning ability can be defined as the ability or competence to understand and acquire knowledge. Acquiring knowledge does require cognitive mental skills, also known as brain power. Cognitive skills include concentration, perception, short and long term memory, and logic. By combining all these ideas together, we get the construct of learning ability. The two measures I'll be comparing are the Watson Glaser Critical Thinking Appraisal, WGCTA, and the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, WISC 5. The first edition of WGCTA was developed in 1994 by Godwin Watson and Edwin Glaser. However, it dates back to 1924 as the Watson test for mindedness. In 1994, Pearson published a short form that quickly became popular for corporations, and in 2009, the developers published a second edition that was easier to use. My second measure, WISC 5, has been around since 1949 as an adaptation of David Wechsler 1939 Wechsler Bellevue Intelligence Scale. After several updates, the fifth edition was released in 2014. On one hand, the WGCTA developers define critical thinking as an individual's ability to digest and understand situations and information. They base it around the RED model of critical thinking. R stands for recognize assumptions, E stands for evaluate arguments, and D stands for draw conclusions. On the other hand, the WISC 5 developers define cognitive skills as the individual's verbal comprehension, reasoning, memory, and processing speed. Here we can see that both definitions are mutually inclusive because in order to recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, and draw conclusions, students need to have verbal comprehension, reasoning, memory, and processing speed. The intended population of WGCTA is adults aged 19 to 60 and beyond, and the intended population of WISC 5 are students aged 6 years and 0 months to 16 years and 11 months. It is important to note that there is a similar test for ages 16 to 60 and beyond called WISE 4. However, a technical manual was only available to be purchased for that test. So for the purposes of this presentations, I have used the younger version of WISE, the WISC. Although both tests measure a mutually inclusive construct, they have two different intended purposes. The purpose of the WGCTA is to assess an individual's ability to understand situations and information as a pre employment tool by organization where the critical thinking abilities are particularly important, such as law firms. In contrast, the purpose of WISC 5 is to provide an overall assessment of general cognitive functioning as well as assess intellectual giftedness or disability such as STAG and ADHD. The WISC 5 is a much larger scale than the WGCTA, incorporating 10 items compared to just 5. However, the questions are shorter to read or to be read to, and they have visual representation. That's why many corporations prefer to give the short version of the WGCTA. The items of the WGCTA are tested in the categories of inference, assumptions, deductions, interpretations, and evaluations of arguments, totaling 40 items each. 12 items for two subscales, recognize assumptions and evaluate arguments, and 16 items for the subscale of drawing conclusions. An example from the WGCAA would be the law that levied import taxes on vegetables but not on fruit was a reasonable and just law. Number one, true. Number two, probably true. Number three, insufficient data. Number four, probably false. Number five, false. In contrast, the Wix examinees receive sets of subtests that are organized in four categories named index scores: verbal comprehension VCI, perceptual reasoning index PRI, formerly perceptual organization index, working memory WMI, and processing speed index PSI, totaling 10 core battery instruments. The VCI consists of three core subtests: similarities, vocabulary, and comprehension. The PRI includes three core subtests: block design, matrix reasoning, and picture context. And the WMI, Working Memory Index, is comprised of two core subtexts: digit span and arithmetic. And finally, the PSI, the Processing Speed Index, contains two core subtests: letter number sequencing and symbol search. An example from the WISC would be, which one of these weighs the same as this? Students are given pictures of different shapes that are assigned visual values from a previous picture, and they have to decide the value based on previously gathered information. Both these tests contain only positively framed questions. The alternative form for the WGCTA is a short form version that is the preferred choice for many employers for the sake of efficiency. The WISC provides 5 supplemental tests that can be used as a substitute if core subtest is invalidated for any reason. In terms of administration, the short form of the WGCTA takes only 30 minutes to administer, and the full form takes up to 60 minutes. Given the fact that the WISC contains more items, it takes 45 to 60 minutes to administer. Both the WGCTA and the WISC have a paper and pencil or digital option for completion. In terms of accommodations for special populations, the WGCTA can be modified in format and procedure in administration. Some examples include reading aloud to visually impaired students and marking their answers on their scoring sheet. Similarly, the WISC also provides accommodations similar to the WGCTA, also adding specific instructions known as reverse rules that are given if students show initial signs of experiencing difficulty. Both tests are available in Spanish and other languages. Both the WGCTA and the WISC are set up as multiple choice nominal scale. The scale for WGCTA ranges from 1 true, 2 probably true, 3 insufficient data, 4 probably false, 5 false, and the scale for WISC is a 1 to 5 numbers randomly assigned to visual answers. For both scales, raw scores can be calculated. The WGCTA contains 40 multiple choice items. Raw scores range from 0 to 40 and reflect the number of questions answered correctly. Scores are based on the RED criteria: recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, draw conclusions. Similarly, the WISC contains 50 multiple choice items due to the fact that the 10 subtests yield 5 scores each. Raw scores can be calculated based on the full scale intelligence quotient, FSIQ, based on the 10 10 core subtests, and index scores based on the VCI, PRI, WMI, PSI, as well as a General Ability Index score, GAI, that is comprised from the VCI and the PRI. This is an optional composite score that is useful when interpreting results for examinees with certain neuropsychological problems, such as ADHD. The subtest scores range from 1 to 19, with scores between 8 and 12 typically considered average. The primary index scores range from 45 to 155. The FSIQ ranges from 40 to 160. For both tests, higher score is desirable, indicating better performance on the items presented and higher critical thinking, intelligence, or cognitive ability. In terms of norming samples for the WGCTA, a total of 6,713 adults in a variety of job settings and percentile ranks were determined. The percentile rank corresponding to a raw score of 35 is 63, indicating that about 63% of the people in the norm group scored lower than or equal to a score of 35 on the test. There are 13 updated norm groups by occupation, industry, and position level that provide context and meaning for individual scores. The WISC-5 includes a large demographically representative normative sample of 2,220 individuals that allows generalizability of individual WISC-5 performance to the U.S. population at large. It was stratified by age, sex, ethnicity, region, and educational level of parents. So, as we can see, both of these tests employed a large norming sample that was quite successful. Both the WGCTA and the WISC report high internal consistency and test-retest reliability. The WGCTA also reports split half reliability. These high coefficient results suggest high internal consistency within items, and the high test-retest reliability suggests better outcomes over a short period of time when testing. In terms of validity evidence, both tests did not provide content validity as applicable. The WISC reported high convergent construct validity ranging from 0.86 to 0.91. In contrast, the WGCTA reported low convergent construct validity of 0.16 to 0.59. However, they reported a good criterion concurrent validity of 0.59 when compared to other tests. The good reliability coefficients of the WGCTA and the WISC-5 suggest that these tests are beneficial in relating critical thinking and cognitive ability to performance in the assessed areas. Therefore, both measures are useful to achievement and the potential for success. WISC-5 results can be used to predict school difficulties and recommend interventions, while WGCTA results can be used to assist in hiring. Some cons of validity are effort and motivation for both tests, as well as lack of cultural sensitivity and creative aspects that are left unassessed. The much feared WGCTA is also called wretched, antiquated, because there are essential skills that are not being tested, and it is dreaded by many law students. When examining the pros and cons of the WGCTA and the WISC, I personally recommend the WISC-5 because it is a useful tool that assesses area of weakness in students that can be improved with interventions such as pre-teaching and reteaching lessons, shared reading activities, visual aid supplements, age-appropriate science experiments, chunking information, connecting new information to known concepts, and speeded flashcards drills, among others. This measure allows for specific intervention as well as knowing one's strength. I recommend the use of WISC 5 as a pre-screening tool for all students entering first grade to assess difficulties early on and provide the needed intervention. These are my references that I used to create this presentation in case you would like further information. I would like to thank you for listening to my presentation and wish you the best.